In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a quick and easy French Bulldog cake topper. So I designed this one for classes at Cake International, so thank you to everybody that came along. Those of you that didn't get a chance to do it, don't worry, because you can learn to make it here. Or you can just use it to remind yourself what you learned at Cake International. So we did this over on the Cerart stand, and we're going to be using the Cerart modelling paste for this one. Now the other one I did in the brown as it is, but I've mixed a bit of brown and white together and even a little bit of yellow in there as well. So I'm going to start by rolling a ball and then a teardrop, and this is the body. So it's quite a chunky teardrop, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my Dresden tool to push in. Can you see it one side, bringing around a curve, and the same at the opposite side, and this is going to create kind of the legs or the hind legs on our French Bulldog. And then I'm going to go in at the front, and then I want to press down between those two lines I've just made. So that dips further in, and it should leave us with two legs that kind of stick out a little bit. You can go over it again with your Dresden tool if you want. So I'm just pinching the top of it a little bit, then flattening it off, and the head will sit on that later. Okay, so that's what it should look like at this stage. I'm going to roll some tiny little balls into oval shapes. So you don't want much for this, maybe like a gram and a half, but it's up to you depending on how big or small you want those feet to look. I'm going to stick them on with just a tiny bit of water, and I'm going to stick them over sort of the back leg area, level with the bottom edge. Let's just put in some little lines to create individual toes for the paws, and then we'll repeat the same for the front feet. Just making sure they go on the bottom of each of the front legs, pressing in those toe lines. Now I haven't talked a lot about the Cerart paste in this video, guys, but I do actually have another YouTube video where I tell you a bit more about the Cerart modelling paste. If it's something you've not used before, then do check out that video. I'll put a link to it in the top corner of the video now. So for the head, we're going to start with a round ball, and we're just going to kind of press it a little bit so it's not completely round, slightly in at either side and the top, and then we're going to kind of use our finger to press a little dip in above what will become the nose area. Going to use my fingers to just lightly press the eye area down a little bit. Just using that Dresden tool to get more of an edge or more obvious line above the nose area, or muzzle area I should say. You can put a couple of crease lines if you want. You can see the brown, the dark brown one that I did before. I didn't bother putting crease lines in, so it's entirely up to you which you prefer. I'm going to just use the balling tool to put in a couple of eye sockets. And I'll link below the video everything that I've used in this video, including all the tools, guys, in case you're wondering what they're all called, because sometimes I forget the names of them. Okay, so the Dresden tool, I'm using the wide end to create kind of this mouth area, and then we want to kind of draw a slight curve coming around. I'm using the wider end, so the more we curve it up at the very far outer edge, the more smiley our dog's going to look. Whereas if we bring it sort of more downwards rather than curling it up at the very outer edges, it's going to look a little bit sadder. Okay, so just pressing it down, pulling out the jowl area a little bit there as well. You can use anything sort of with a little pointy end on, even a cocktail stick if you want for that. And I'm just going to darken the muzzle area, just using a little bit of dark brown edible food colour, or edible dust I should say. A nice soft brush, so I'm using the Yellow Bee Cake Company one, which is a really nice brush. Again, I'll put links below to where you can get all these things from. I've tried to go a little bit darker in the crease in the mouth. I'm going to put a tiny bit just sort of around the eye socket as well. So I'm keeping the powder dry on the brush. I'm just going lightly at first. I can always add more later if I feel I need to. And then I'm swapping to a smaller brush to just brush on those little eyebrow areas. Now, if you want, you can stick the eyebrows on as separate paste. You can see on the one in the corner that I have stuck them on as individual pieces rather than dusting them on like I have on this one. We're going to take a tiny little piece of black modelling paste for the nose. We're going to roll it into a bit of an oval, squash it, and then try and press it with 3 fingers into more of a triangle shape. And we're just going to press that on there like so. Now play around with the nose, see if you prefer it bigger or smaller. And you can always add little nostrils as well if you want. So on this one, I've just made a second one just to see what it looks like if I put little nostrils in. It doesn't show very well actually on screen. With it being black, it's difficult to see. I'm just trying to add some in just there. Now I'm also just going to dust a tiny bit of that brown edible powder onto the feet, just a small amount. Again, you can go heavier with this if you want. Then we're going to fill the eye sockets with white modelling paste. So I want a ball for each one, for each eye, and I'm just going to press it in. Now I haven't weighed this out, but sometimes I have to roll the ball a few times to get the right size. And depending on the size of the eye socket you've made is going to depend on the size of the white of the eye that you're going to put in there. So next we want 2 small balls of black, and I'm going to flatten them with my finger to create a circle or a disc. You can use a little circle cutter if you've got one, or even the ends of piping nozzles. If you've got a round piping nozzle, you can use that to cut out the circles with as well. And then we're going to stick these in place. You can have your dog looking in different directions. I'm going to have mine looking up to the side. So I'm just going to make sure that both eyes go in the same direction. Just going to poke a tiny indentation where I want the white of the eye to go. I don't always bother with that bit. Sometimes I just paint a white dot on, or sometimes I want to stick a little tiny ball of white modelling paste in that dip. Have a watch through all my other videos as well. You can see that often when I'm doing the eyes, I will do them in slightly different ways each time. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to add a cocktail stick for support, just to help hold the head on because it is quite big and heavy. You might find you can rest it on the top of the body without the stick. It depends on how long you've got available for letting it dry and set in. If it's going to be moving around pretty soon after making it, then add that cocktail stick. But just make sure anybody that's receiving this knows that is in there and that they cannot eat or bite it with that cocktail stick in there. And I forgot to say I did add a little bit of water between the head and the neck as well, just to help stick it in place. Okay, so the ears, we're going to take 2 teardrop shapes. And I'm just rolling the paintbrush handle just in the middle where it's left it slightly thicker at either edge of the ear. And then we're just going to trim a little bit off where it's going to come into contact with the head. So can you see we're cutting it at a slight angle? And like so. I think I'm just going to darken the ears a little bit. Or you might want to stick the ears in a completely different colour. You can see in the one in the corner of the screen, I actually used black paste and stuck it on in black. This one I'm going to just dust a bit of pink edible dust into the ears. And we're going to stick these onto the top of the head. I'm just using water to attach them. You can use edible glue if you prefer. Just make sure you've pressed them on firmly. We don't want them dropping off. And I'm going to give him a collar. I'm just going to take some black. I'm just going to roll that out. And we're just going to place this around the neck. Just cut it off where it meets the back of the neck. Pull it down slightly at the front so it looks like it's a nice curved shape. And before I forget, I'm just going to roll a tiny little curly tail, really tiny, for the back to go on the bum. And then I've mixed a bit of my white and black together to give me a grey colour, and I'm going to roll some tiny little balls. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll these so they have a point on each end, and these are going to be the little spikes on our collar. So I'm going to poke a few little holes in the black collar, just so that when I put the spikes in, they'll stick in place a little bit easier if they're set into a hole. And you can play around, you can do different designs, you don't have to have a collar. A little bit later in the video, I will give one a bow and I'll show you how to make that. If you prefer, you could just do like a little pendant, so you could just roll a simple little piece, curve it around the collar, and then just flatten a ball to create a disc so it looks more like its little name tag. Maybe put a little hole in the top there. There we go. Okay, so if I want to make my French Bulldog but with closed eyes, we're going to do it exactly the same way as the other one. It's just instead of putting white in the eyes, I'm going to put grey in the eyes, and I'm just going to put a little curved line across each eyeball so that it marks where I can put the eyelashes later. And again, the rest of the face are just doing exactly the same way. When you are doing the side of the mouth, making it smiley, the further up you press, the more it will kind of push the cheek up over the eye, and it will make our dog look a bit like it's smiling with its eyes closed rather than just being asleep. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but hopefully you can tell. You can also give your dog some pink on its cheeks if you like. And for the eyelashes, I'm going to go for 2 really tiny pieces of black modelling paste that I've rolled nice and thin with a point on each end. I'm just sticking them in place with a bit of water. I'll put them on straight at first, and then taking a brush, I'm just going to gently kind of move it around to bend it where I want it to go. Just flicking it up at that outer edge. So nose just goes on in the same way, but for this one I want to give it a bow. I'm going for quite a wide bow, so you just take a rectangle nice and thinly rolled, and you're just going to kind of fold each half into the middle and then try and concertina it backwards and forwards just in that middle section, like so. Now usually I'd wrap a little strip of paste around the middle, but I don't think we're gonna do that on this one. I might even cut it in half actually and stick it on as 2 separate pieces. And I'm just going to stick these so that they're actually on the back of its neck rather than the front on this one. Of course you can play around, you could put a bow on the top of the head or the front. And then you can add like a centerpiece after you've put them in place if you like. So I'm just going to go for a simple rolled out oval for that one. There they are, all finished. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and don't forget to check out the other little simple cake toppers that I had made for the Saraceno stand. So you can also see a video available online to watch for the cats and the rabbits as well. And thank you to everyone that came over to the stall to make them. Thanks for watching.